Well, it's VE Day, and I found this marvellous video. So, we'll watch it, and then I'll make some pointed comments, as always.
This is London. The Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Winston Churchill.
Yesterday morning at 2:41 a.m. at General Eisenhower's headquarters, General Jodl, the representative of the German High Command, and of Grand Admiral Dönitz, the designated head of the German state, signed the act of unconditional surrender of all German land, sea, and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Forces and simultaneously to the Soviet High Command. Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May. But in the interest of saving lives, the ceasefire began yesterday to be sounded along all the fronts. And our dear Channel Islands are also to be freed today. The German war is therefore at an end. After years of intense preparation, Germany hurled herself on Poland at the beginning of September 1939. And in pursuance of our guarantee to Poland, and in common with the French Republic, Great Britain, the British Empire, and Commonwealth of Nations declared war upon this foul aggression. After gallant France had been struck down, we from this island and from our united empire maintained the struggle single-handed for a whole year, until we were joined by the military might of Soviet Russia and later by the overwhelming power and resources of the United States of America. Finally, almost the whole world was combined against the evildoers, who are now prostrate before us. Our gratitude to our splendid allies goes forth from all our hearts in this island and throughout the British Empire. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing, but let us not forget for a moment the toils and efforts that lie ahead. Japan remains unsubdued. We must now devote all our strength and resources to the completion of our tasks, both at home and abroad. Advance, Britannia. Long live the cause of freedom. God save the King.
Greater and greater crowds surge around the palace railings as onto the balcony come the royal family, accompanied by our Prime Minister himself.
That was great, wasn't it? I do like to start the day with a bit of jingoism. Now, I started with that right because that was back in those halcyon days of yore when the British were proud and patriotic people who still believed in themselves and their institutions and their ability to stand fast against any menace. Now is not those times. Now the British are a cowed people who, in the main, appear to be reduced to utter panic by the coronavirus. It's not the Black Death, right? It's not some form of terrifying science fiction movie virus that wipes out 50% of the population and reduces strong, stalwart men to fucking gibbering mutants in wheelchairs. And yet, we've been cowed utterly by it. If anyone by the way, if anyone can see it, I did used to be a subscriber. I pulled my subscription last week to the Telegraph because, frankly, I'd had enough of them. I always paid for the Telegraph because I felt like conservative newspapers needed a bit of support in the UK. But there's too many lefty middle-class arseholes work for the Telegraph. The story that did it was that one Sargon covered, where you've got some upper-class twit calling him a Nazi. So fuck the Telegraph. But it's still one of the better papers in the UK. It's the best of a sorry lot. So the story is the government has terrorised Britons into believing coronavirus will kill them. Professor Robert Dingwall says social distancing levels set at 2 metres because Britons had not been trusted to observe 1 metre. It sort of sounds like when you're in the military and the boss tells an underling, oh yeah, you know, it might be the colonel, and he'll tell one of the company commanders, all right, make sure you get the men fell in at 6 o'clock. So he flaps and adds 10 minutes to the timing because he wants his guys to be early. And he goes and tells his junior officers, oh yeah, make sure you get the lads fell in at 10 to 6. And then the junior officers go and tell the troop commanders, who are all like, you know, lieutenants, and he tells them 20 to 6 because he wants to make sure they're early. So then they tell the sergeants, and they say 5:30, and then the sergeants tell the corporals, and they say 5:20. And then by the time it gets down to the blokes, it's just, they've rounded it down to 5 o'clock, and you turn up fucking 5 to 5, because they say, oh, you've got to be 5 minutes early in the car. And the next thing, you stood there with your thumb wedged firmly up your fucking arse for 1 hour and 5 minutes. That seems to be what the government's done with this fucking coronavirus. The government's coronavirus warnings have effectively terrorised Britons into believing that this is a disease that is going to kill you, even though most of those infected will not be hospitalised, one of its advisors has warned. No shit, it's what I've been saying from the get-go, right? Those casual statistics, 100% wrong. They said 80,000 people had it, there was a hospitalisation rate of 4%. 80,000 people haven't had it. At least 1 million fucking people have had it. Therefore, not very dangerous. But we'll continue. Professor Robert Dingwall told Friday's Chopper Politics podcast, which you can listen to on the player below, that the government should let people come within 1.5 metres of each other inside and outside as part of measures to ease the lockdown. The public authorities face a challenge to manage the British people out of the levels of fear and anxiety that have helped create through their stay home, protect the NHS, save lives messaging. Professor Dingwall is based at Nottingham Trent University and sits on the government's new and emerging respiratory virus threats advisory group, NERVTAG. That's a mouthy acronym, isn't it? Which feeds into the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, SAGE. How many fucking groups have we got? I think they've watched too much fucking TV, all the British government and all our civil servants. Everything has to have a cool fucking name now. Speaking in a personal capacity, he said, we have this very strong message which has effectively terrorised the population into believing that this is a disease that is going to kill you, and mostly it isn't. 80% of the people who get this infection will never need to go near a hospital. Fucking higher. He's erring on the side of caution there. 95%. The ones who do go to hospital because they're quite seriously ill, most of them will come out alive, and even those who go into intensive care. We've completely lost sight of that in the obsession with deaths, the human interest stories about deaths, the international comparisons about deaths, the opportunities for intrepid television journalists to put on lots of PPE and go into a high-tech where people are acutely ill. All of that helps to create this climate of fear, and I'm not surprised in the sense that the government might take a rather cautious approach to try and unlock the lockdown, simply because they would really be nervous that if they pushed it too quickly, it would be like giving a party and nobody came. Professor Dingwall said that the mandatory social distancing level was set at 2 metres because Britons had not been trusted to observe 1 metre. So, Chopper's Politics podcast, there is a fair degree of consensus now among people who are more expert on these things than I am that outdoor transmission is negligible. Personally, I think we could quite safely go to 1.5 metres, which seems to be an intentionally acceptable standard inside and outside. Professor Dingwall said he had been told by a senior public health specialist that we knew it was 1 metre, but we doubled it to 2 because we didn't think the British population would understand what 1 metre was. And we couldn't trust them to observe it, so we doubled it to be on the safe side. Honestly, you can't. What did I say in my video before last week? They do not trust us. They think we are all absolute shitheads. Like, the British government is, because they're all old Etonians and posh cunts on both sides of the aisle. Everyone in Labour's solidly upper and middle class arseholes themselves. The whole government's full of rich wankers who think that if you haven't got an Oxbridge education, you're a fucking moron. Like, they think... Just read that again. We did not think that the British public would understand what 1 metre was. Like what? We're confused by that. We don't know what a metre is. 100 centimetres. It's the metric system. It's fucking easy, innit? We used to have 300 different coins and about 70 different weights and 40 different lengths. And the whole reason we changed it was because fucking easy. I remember being a little kid in primary school and playing with a metre stick. We know how long a fucking metre is. Or for those that don't, let me give it you in simple terms. It's about 1/4 of Matty's cock. I'm kidding, it's not. Use a tape measure if you're a fucking idiot. If you're standing next to somebody in a supermarket and you both take a jar of coffee off the same shelf and you reach up and your hands touch, you put it in your trolley and you turn away and you go on your separate paths. That again is not something to get unduly worked up about. Yes, top comments inevitably. What sticks in my craw is that this science expert has the gall to state that the Great British Unwashed can't imagine what a metre looks like. No wonder they think anyone without a degree from Oxford or Cambridge is as thick as pig shit. Exactly what I just said. Fuck me. There's another good one. I think the headline rings true. We have been terrorised. There's a scene from Battle of Britain where the German ambassador, Baron von Richter, tells David Kelly that the more sensible course of action would be for the British to give in to Hitler's demands to save further loss of life. Sir David rebuffs this offer with the words, "We don't frighten easily." When I was much younger, I remember thinking at the time, for all their faults, we British were a people who didn't frighten easily. Well, it might have been the case 75 years ago, but it certainly isn't the case now. So listen, let's get back to the Churchill mentality, shall we? This VE Day, think on this. The coronavirus is a minor risk. Take care of yourself, stay strong, be fit. And then ask yourself a simple question. If they would offer you some miracle drug, one of those testosterone reducing drug, that would guarantee you safety, but it would cut your testosterone by 2/3 and reduce you to some tearful, wimpy, fucking girly man for the rest of your days, would you take it? No, you wouldn't. Power through the coronavirus. Of course I'm not suggesting you don't take sensible measures, but there's no need to be afraid. I would rather be fucking dead than afraid. Seriously, most men feel the same, certainly in the core they did. You don't do valorous things because you're particularly brave. You don't. I got commendations from the Americans for helping them out when I was in Afghanistan. If you see an injured man and you're under fire from the enemy, you don't run over to give them first aid or stick your head above the parapet to return fire because you're not afraid of getting a round through your fucking face. You are. That's in the back of your mind. But the motivator is your pride. You think, I'd rather be dead than ashamed. I don't want to be a fucking loser who lets down my team and my friends, my battle brothers, because I was a bit scared. And I think the fucking British public need to have that same mentality now. You want to look in the mirror and you want to be proud of who looks back at you. I'm not saying ignore the fucking lockdown, and I'm not saying run out and daisy chain round the park with 20 of your fucking chums. But the time for us to live in thrall to the threat from this paltry virus is over. Remember where you come from. Remember the stock. Remember the stiff upper lips and strong shoulders of your forebears. And say, enough. I will not live in fear because of some fucking virus with a 0.03% fatality rate or whatever the fuck it is. Get a grip. Enjoy your life. Keep smiling. And don't let fear turn you into a shell. Get on with your life. Go for a fucking walk. That is good for you. Get some fresh air and some sunlight. Stop fucking crying about the NHS. Jesus fucking wept. There's my thoughts for VE Day, boys and girls. Enough is enough. It's time for us to start sorting our fucking lives out. And let's embrace that blitz spirit once again. God save the Queen. And God bless the United States of America while he's at it. Cheers.